Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. Section 1. Preface. Is this another collection of stupid poems that children cannot use? Will they look hopelessly through this volume for poems that suit them? Will they say despairingly, "This is too long," and "That is too hard," and "I don't like that because it is not interesting"? Are there 3 or 4 pleasing poems, and are all the rest put in to fill up the book? Nay, verily, the poems in this collection are those that children love. With the exception of 7, they are short enough for children to commit to memory, without wearying themselves or losing interest in the poem. If one boy learns "The Overland Mail," or "The Recruit," or "Wynken, Blynken, and Nod," or "The Song in Camp," or "Old Ironsides," or "I Have a Little Shadow," or "The Tournament," or "The Duel," 9 boys out of 10 will be eager to follow him. I know, because I have tried it a dozen times. Every boy loves "Paul Revere's Ride" (alas, I have not been able to include it), and is ambitious to learn it, but only boys having a quick memory will persevere to the end. Shall the slower boy be deprived of the pleasure of reading the whole poem and getting its inspiring sentiment, and learning as many stanzas as his mind will take? No, indeed. Half of such a poem is better than none. Let the slow boy learn and recite as many stanzas as he can, and the boy of quick memory follow him up with the rest. It does not help the slow boy's memory to keep it down entirely, or deprive it of its smaller activity because he cannot learn the whole. Some people will invariably give the slow child a very short poem. It is often better to divide a long poem among the children, letting each child learn his part. The sustained interest of a long poem is worth while. The Merman, the Battle of Ivry, Horatius at the Bridge, Krinken, the Skeleton in Armor, the Raven, and Hervé Riel may all profitably be learned that way. Nevertheless, the child enjoys most the poem that is just long enough, and there is much to be said in favor of the selection that is adapted, in length, to the average mind, for the child hesitates in the presence of quantity rather than in the presence of subtle thought. I make claim for this collection that it is made up of poems that the majority of children will learn of their own free will. There are people who believe that in the matter of learning poetry there is no ought, but this is a false belief. There is a duty even there, for every American citizen ought to know the great national songs that keep alive the spirit of patriotism. Children should build for their future, and get, while they are children, what only the fresh imagination of the child can assimilate. They should store up an untold wealth of heroic sentiment. They should acquire the habit of carrying a literary quality in their conversation. They should carry a heart full of the fresh and delightful associations and memories connected with poetry hours to brighten mature years. They should develop their memories while they have memories to develop. Will the boy who took every poetry hour for a whole school year to learn Henry of Navarre ever regret it? Or will the children who listened to it? No. It was fresh every week, and they brought fresh interest in listening. The boy will always love it because he used to love it. There were boys who scrambled for the right to recite "The Tournament," "The Charge of the Light Brigade," "The Star-Spangled Banner," and so on. The boy who was first to reach the front had the privilege. The triumph of getting the chance to recite added to the zest of it. Will they ever forget it? I know Lowell's "The Finding of the Lyre." Attention, Sir Knights! See who can learn it first as I say it to you. But I find that I have forgotten a line of it, so you may open your books and teach it to me. Now I can recite every word of it. How much of it can you repeat from memory? One boy can say it all. Nearly every child has learned the most of it. Now it will be easy for you to learn it alone, and Memory, the goddess beautiful, will henceforth go with you to recall this happy hour. Mary E. Burt, The John A. Browning School, 1904. End of section 1. Read by Kara Schallenberg. on October 8, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 2. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Arrow and the Song, The Baby, Let Dogs Delight to Bark and Bite, Little Things, He Prayeth Best, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Pippa, and The Days of the Month. Part 1. The Budding Moment. The Arrow and the Song. The Arrow and the Song, by Longfellow, 1807 to 1882, is placed first in this volume out of respect to a little girl of 6 years who used to love to recite it to me. She knew many poems, but this was her favorite. I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I know not where. For so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I know not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterward, in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke, and the song, from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend. Henry W. Longfellow. The Baby. I found The Baby in Stedman's Anthology. It is placed in this volume by permission of the poet, Jeremiah Eames Rankin, of Cleveland, born 1828, because it captured the heart of a 10-year-old boy whose fancy was greatly moved by the two beautiful lines, "Her face is like an angel's face, I'm glad she has no wings." Nae shoon to hide her tiny taes, nae stockin' on her feet, her supple ankles white as snaw, or early blossoms sweet. Her simple dress o' sprinkled pink, her double dimpled chin, her puckered lips and balmy mow, wi' nae an tooth within. Her een sae like her mither's een, twa gentle liquid things. Her face is like an angel's face, we're glad she has nae wings. Jeremiah Eames Rankin. Let Dogs Delight to Bark and Bite. Let Dogs Delight to Bark and Bite, by Isaac Watts, 1674 to 1748, and Little Drops of Water, by Ebenezer Cobham Brewer, 1810 to 1897, are poems that the world cannot outgrow. Once in the mind, they fasten. They were not born to die. Let dogs delight to bark and bite, for God hath made them so. Let bears and lions growl and fight, for 'tis their nature too. But children, you should never let such angry passions rise. Your little hands were never made to tear each other's eyes. Isaac Watts. Little Things. Little drops of water, little grains of sand, make the mighty ocean and the pleasant land. Thus the little minutes, humble though they be, make the mighty ages of eternity. Ebenezer Cobham Brewer. He Prayeth Best. These two stanzas, the very heart of that great poem, The Ancient Mariner, by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, 1772 to 1834, sum up the lesson of this masterpiece: insensibility is a crime. Farewell, farewell, but this I tell to thee, thou wedding guest: he prayeth well who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. He prayeth best who loveth best all things, both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. Samuel T. Coleridge. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. When the glorious sun is set, when the grass with dew is wet, then you show your little light, twinkle, twinkle, all the night. In the dark blue sky you keep, and often through my curtains peep, for you never shut your eye till the sun is in the sky. As your bright and tiny spark guides the traveller in the dark, though I know not what you are, twinkle, twinkle, little star. Pippa. Springs at the Morn, from Pippa Passes by Robert Browning (1812 1889), has become a very popular stanza with little folks. All's right with the world is a cheerful motto for the nursery and schoolroom. The year's at the spring, the day's in the morn, morning's at 7, the hillside's dew pearled, the lark's on the wing, the snail's on the thorn, God's in his heaven, all's right with the world. Robert Browning. The days of the month. The days of the month is a useful bit of doggerel that we need all through life. It is anonymous. 30 days hath September, April, June, and November. February has 28 alone. All the rest have 31, excepting leap year. That's the time when February's days are 29. Old Song. End of section 2. Read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on October 8th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 3. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: True Royalty, Playing Robinson Crusoe, My Shadow, and Little White Lily. Part 1, continued. True Royalty. True Royalty and Playing Robinson Crusoe are pleasing stanzas from the Just So stories of Rudyard Kipling, born 1865. There was never a queen like Balkis, from here to the wide world's end. But Balkis talked to a butterfly as you would talk to a friend. There was never a king like Solomon, not since the world began. But Solomon talked to a butterfly as a man would talk to a man. She was Queen of Sabea, and he was Asia's lord. But both of 'em talked to butterflies when they took their walks abroad. Rudyard Kipling. Playing Robinson Crusoe. Pussy can sit by the fire and sing, Pussy can climb a tree, or play with a silly old cork and string to muse herself, not me. But I like Binky, my dog, because he knows how to behave. So Binky's the same as the first friend was, and I am the man in the cave. Pussy will play Man Friday till it's time to wet her paw, and make her walk on the window-sill, for the footprint Crusoe saw. Then she fluffles her tail and mews, and scratches and won't attend. But Binky will play whatever I choose, and he is my true first friend. Pussy will rub my knees with her head, pretending she loves me hard. But the very minute I go to my bed, Pussy runs out in the yard. And there she stays till the morning light, so I know it is only pretend. But Binky, he snores at my feet all night, and he is my firstest friend. Rudyard Kipling. My Shadow. My Shadow, by Robert Louis Stevenson, 1850 1894, is one of the most popular short poems extant. I have taught it to a great many very young boys, and not one has ever tried to evade learning it. Older pupils like it equally well. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He is very, very like me from the heels up to the head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow, not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. For he sometimes shoots up taller like an India rubber ball, and he sometimes gets so little that there's none of him at all. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He stays so close beside me, he's a coward, you can see. I'd think shame to stick to Nursey as that shadow sticks to me. One morning, very early, before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an arrant sleepy-head, had stayed at home behind me, and was fast asleep in bed. Robert Louis Stevenson. Little White Lily. This poem, by George MacDonald, born 1828, finds a place in this volume because, as a child, I loved it. It completely filled my heart, and has made every member of the Lily family dear to me. George MacDonald's charming book, At the Back of the North Wind, also was my wonder and delight. Little White Lily sat by a stone, drooping and waiting till the sun shone. Little White Lily sunshine has fed. Little White Lily is lifting her head. Little White Lily said, "It is good." Little White Lily's clothing and food. Little White Lily dressed like a bride, shining with whiteness, and crowned beside. Little White Lily drooping with pain, waiting and waiting for the wet rain. Little White Lily holdeth her cup. Rain is fast falling and filling it up. Little White Lily said, "Good again, when I am thirsty to have nice rain. Now I am stronger, now I am cool. Heat cannot burn me, my veins are so full." Little White Lily smells very sweet. On her head sunshine, rain at her feet. Thanks to the sunshine, thanks to the rain, Little White Lily is happy again. George MacDonald. End of section 3. Read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on October 8th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 4. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: How the Leaves Came Down, Wee Willie Winkie, and The Owl and the Pussycat. Part 1 continued. How the Leaves Came Down. How the Leaves Came Down by Susan Coolidge, born 1845, appeals to children because it helps to reconcile them to going to bed. I go to bed by day is one of the crosses of childhood. I'll tell you how the leaves came down, the great tree to his children said. You're getting sleepy, Yellow and Brown. Yes, very sleepy, Little Red. It is quite time to go to bed. Ah, begged each silly, pouting leaf, let us a little longer stay. Dear Father Tree, behold our grief. 'Tis such a very pleasant day. We do not want to go away. So for just one more merry day, to the great tree the leaflets clung, frolicked and danced, and had their way, upon the autumn breezes swung, whispering all their sports among. Perhaps the great tree will forget, and let us stay until the spring, if we all beg and coax and fret. But the great tree did no such thing. He smiled to hear their whispering. Come, children, all to bed, he cried, and ere the leaves could urge their prayer, he shook his head, and far and wide, fluttering and rustling everywhere, down sped the leaflets through the air. I saw them, on the ground they lay, golden and red, a huddled swarm, waiting till one from far away, white bedclothes heaped upon her arm, should come to wrap them safe and warm. The great bare tree looked down and smiled. Good night, dear little leaves, he said. And from below each sleepy child replied, Good night, and murmured, It is so nice to go to bed. Susan Coolidge. Wee Willie. Wee Willie Winkie by William Miller, 1810 to 1872, is included in this volume out of respect to an 8-year-old child who chose it from among hundreds. We had one poetry hour every week, and he studied and recited it with unabated interest to the end of the year. Wee Willie Winkie rins through the town, upstairs and downstairs in his nicht-gown, tirlin' at the window, cryin' at the lock, Are the weans in their bed? For it's now 10 o'clock. Hey, Willie Winkie, are ye comin' ben? The cat's singin' gay thrums to the sleepin' hen. The dog's speldered on the floor, and disna gie a cheep. But here's a waucriff laddie that winna fa' asleep. Onything but sleep, ye rogue, glow'rin' like the moon, Rattlin' in an airn jug wi' an airn spoon, Rumblin' tumblin' round about, crowin' like a cock, Skirlin' like a kenna what, wauknin' sleepin' folk. Hey, Willie Winkie, the wain's in a creel, Wamblin' aff a body's knee like a very eel, Ruggin' at the cat's lug and ravellin' a her thrums. Hey, Willie Winkie, see there he comes! Weary is the mither that has a story wean, A wee strumpy stousie that canna rin his lane, That has a battle aye wi' sleep before he'll close an e'e, But a kiss frae off his rosy lips gies strength anew to me. William Miller. The Owl and the Pussy-Cat. The Owl and the Pussy-Cat, by Edward Lear (1812 1888), is placed here because I once found that a timid child was much strengthened and developed by learning it. It is a song that appeals to the imagination of children, and they like to sing it. The Owl and the Pussy-Cat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The Owl looked up to the moon above and sang to a small guitar. "Oh, lovely pussy, oh, pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, you are! What a beautiful pussy you are!" Pussy said to the Owl, "You elegant fowl, how wonderfully sweet you sing! Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring?" They sailed away for a year and a day, to the land where the bong tree grows. And there in a wood a piggy-wig stood, with a ring in the end of his nose, with a ring in the end of his nose. "Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring?" Said the piggy, "I will." So they took it away, and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon, and hand in hand on the edge of the sand they danced by the light of the moon, they danced by the light of the moon. Edward Lear. End of section 4. Read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on October 8, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 5. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 2 poems, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod, and The Duel. Part 1 continued. Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod, by Eugene Field, 1850 1895, pleases children, who are all by nature sailors and adventurers. Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod one night sailed off in a wooden shoe, sailed on a river of crystal light into a sea of dew. "Where are you going, and what do you wish?" the old moon asked the three. "We have come to fish for the herring fish that live in this beautiful sea. Nets of silver and gold have we," said Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. The old moon laughed and sang a song as they rocked in the wooden shoe, and the wind that sped them all night long ruffled the waves of dew. The little stars were the herring fish that lived in the beautiful sea. "Now cast your nets wherever you wish, never afeard are we," so cried the stars to the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. All night long their nets they threw to the stars in the twinkling foam, then down from the skies came the wooden shoe, bringing the fishermen home. 'Twas all so pretty a sail, it seemed as if it could not be, and some folk thought 'twas a dream they dreamed, of sailing that beautiful sea. But I shall name you the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Winkin' and blinkin' are two little eyes, and Nod is a little head, and the wooden shoe that sailed the skies is a wee one's trundle bed. So shut your eyes while Mother sings of wonderful sights that be, and you shall see the beautiful things as you rock on the misty sea, where the old shoe rocked the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Eugene Field. The Duel. The Duel by Eugene Field, 1850 to 1895, is almost the most popular humorous poem that has come under my notice. In making such a collection as this, it is not easy to find poems at once delicate, witty, and graphic. I have taught The Duel hundreds of times, and children invariably love it. The gingham dog and the calico cat side by side on the table sat. 'Twas 12:30, and what do you think? Nor one nor t'other had slept a wink. The old Dutch clock and the Chinese plate appeared to know as sure as fate there was going to be a terrible spat. I wasn't there, I simply state what was told to me by the Chinese plate. The gingham dog went bow wow wow, and the calico cat replied meow. The air was littered an hour or so with bits of gingham and calico, while the old Dutch clock in the chimney place up with its hands before its face, for it always dreaded a family row. Now mind, I am only telling you what the old Dutch clock declares is true. The Chinese plate looked very blue, and wailed, "Oh dear, what shall we do?" But the gingham dog and the calico cat wallowed this way and tumbled that, employing every tooth and claw in the awfullest way you ever saw. And oh, how the gingham and calico flew! Don't fancy I exaggerate. I got my views from the Chinese plate. Next morning, where the two had sat, they found no trace of the dog or cat, and some folks think unto this day that burglars stole the pair away. But the truth about the cat and the pup is this: they ate each other up. Now what do you really think of that? The old Dutch clock, it told me so, and that is how I came to know. Eugene Field. End of section 5. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 8th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 6. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Boy Who Never Told a Lie, Love Between Brothers and Sisters, The Bluebells of Scotland, If I Had But Two Little Wings, and A Farewell. Part 1, continued. The Boy Who Never Told a Lie. The Boy Who Never Told a Lie, by Anonymous, as well as Whatever Brawls Disturb the Street, by Isaac Watts, 1674 to 1748, are real gems. A few years ago they were more in favor than the poorer verse that has been put forward, but they are sure to be revived. Once there was a little boy, with curly hair and pleasant eye, a boy who always told the truth, and never, never told a lie. And when he trotted off to school, the children all about would cry, "There goes the curly-headed boy, the boy that never tells a lie." And everybody loved him so, because he always told the truth, that every day as he grew up, 'twas said, "There goes the honest youth." And when the people that stood near would turn to ask the reason why, the answer would be always this: because he never tells a lie. Love Between Brothers and Sisters. Whatever brawls disturb the street, there should be peace at home. Where sisters dwell and brothers meet, quarrels should never come. Birds in their little nests agree, and 'tis a shameful sight when children of one family fall out and chide and fight. Isaac Watts. The Bluebell of Scotland. Oh, where and oh, where is your Highland laddie gone? He's gone to fight the French for King George upon the throne, and it's oh, in my heart, how I wish him safe at home. Oh where does your Highland laddie dwell? He dwells in merry Scotland, at the sign of the Blue Bell, and it's oh in my heart that I love my laddie well. If I Had But Two Little Wings. If I Had But Two Little Wings, by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, 1772 to 1834, is recommended by a number of teachers and schoolgirls. If I had but two little wings, and were a little feathery bird, to you I'd fly, my dear. But thoughts like these are idle things, and I stay here. But in my sleep to you I fly, I'm always with you in my sleep, the world is all one's own. And then one wakes, and where am I? All alone. Samuel T. Coleridge. A Farewell. A Farewell, by Charles Kingsley, 1819 to 1875, makes it seem worth while to be good. My fairest child, I have no song to give you, no lark could pipe to skies so dull and gray, yet ere we part one lesson I can leave you for every day. Be good, sweet maid, and let who will be clever, do noble things, not dream them all day long, and so make life, death, and that vast forever one grand, sweet song. Charles Kingsley. End of section 6. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 9th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 7. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, Casabianca and The Captain's Daughter. Part 1. Continued. Casabianca. Casabianca, by Felicia Hemans, 1793 to 1835, is the portrait of a faithful heart, an example of unreasoning obedience. It is right that a child should obey even to the death the commands of a loving parent. The boy stood on the burning deck, whence all but him had fled. The flame that lit the battle's wreck shone round him o'er the dead. Yet beautiful and bright he stood, as born to rule the storm, a creature of heroic blood, a proud though childlike form. The flames rolled on, he would not go without his father's word. That father, faint in death below, his voice no longer heard. He called aloud, "Say, father, say, if yet my task is done." He knew not that the chieftain lay unconscious of his son. "Speak, father," once again he cried, "if I may yet be gone." And but the booming shots replied, and fast the flames rolled on. Upon his brow he felt their breath, and in his waving hair, and looked from that lone post of death in still yet brave despair, and shouted but once more aloud, "My father, must I stay?" While o'er him fast through sail and shroud the wreathing fires made way. They wrapped the ship in splendor wild, they caught the flag on high, and streamed above the gallant child like banners in the sky. Then came a burst of thunder sound, the boy, oh, where was he? Ask of the winds that far around with fragments strew the sea. With mast and helm and pennon fair that well had borne their part, but the noblest thing that perished there was that young, faithful heart. Felicia Hemans. The Captain's Daughter. The Captain's Daughter, by James T. Fields, 1816 to 1881, carries weight with every young audience. It is pointed to an end that children love, viz., trust in a higher power. We were crowded in the cabin, not a soul would dare to sleep. It was midnight on the waters, and a storm was on the deep. 'Tis a fearful thing in winter to be shattered by the blast, and to hear the rattling trumpet thunder, "Cut away the mast!" So we shuddered there in silence, for the stoutest held his breath, while the hungry sea was roaring and the breakers talked with death. As thus we sat in darkness, each one busy with his prayers, "We are lost!" the captain shouted as he staggered down the stairs. But his little daughter whispered, as she took his icy hand, "Isn't God upon the ocean, just the same as on the land?" Then we kissed the little maiden, and we spoke in better cheer, and we anchored safe in harbor when the morn was shining clear. James T. Fields. End of Section 7. Read by Kara Schallenberg and two noisy parakeets on October 9th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 8. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Village Blacksmith, Sweet and Low, The Violet, and The Rainbow. Part 1, continued. The Village Blacksmith. Longfellow, 1807 to 1882, is truly the children's poet. His poems are as simple, pathetic, artistic, and philosophical as if they were intended to tell the plain, everyday story of life to older people. The Village Blacksmith has been learned by thousands of children, and there is no criticism to be put upon it. The age of the child has nothing whatever to do with his learning it. Age does not grade children, nor is poetry wholly to be so graded. Time is the false reply. Under a spreading chestnut tree the village smithy stands. The smith, a mighty man is he, with large and sinewy hands, and the muscles of his brawny arms are strong as iron bands. His hair is crisp and black and long, his face is like the tan. His brow is wet with honest sweat, he earns whate'er he can, and looks the whole world in the face, for he owes not any man. Week in, week out, from morn till night, you can hear his bellows blow. You can hear him swing his heavy sledge with measured beat and slow, like a sexton ringing the village bell when the evening sun is low. And children coming home from school look in at the open door. They love to see the flaming forge and hear the bellows roar, and catch the burning sparks that fly like chaff from a threshing floor. He goes on Sunday to the church and sits among his boys. He hears the parson pray and preach. He hears his daughter's voice singing in the village choir, and it makes his heart rejoice. It sounds to him like her mother's voice singing in paradise. He needs must think of her once more, how in the grave she lies, and with his hard, rough hand he wipes a tear out of his eyes. Toiling, rejoicing, sorrowing, onward through life he goes. Each morning sees some task begin, each evening sees it close. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. Thanks, thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life our fortunes must be wrought. Thus on its sounding anvil shaped each burning deed and thought. Henry W. Longfellow. Sweet and Low. Sweet and low, sweet and low, wind of the western sea. Low, low, breathe and blow, wind of the western sea. Over the rolling waters go, come from the dropping moon, and blow, blow him again to me, while my little one, my pretty one, sleeps. Sleep and rest, father will come to thee soon. Rest, rest on mother's breast, father will come to thee soon. Father will come to his babe in the nest, silver sails all out of the west, under the silver moon. Sleep, my little one, sleep, my pretty one, sleep. Alfred Tennyson. The Violet. The Violet by Jane Taylor, 1783 to 1824, is another of those dear old-fashioned poems, pure poetry and pure violet. It is included in this volume out of respect to my own love for it when I was a child. Down in a green and shady bed a modest violet grew. Its stalk was bent, it hung its head as if to hide from view. And yet it was a lovely flower, no colours bright and fair. It might have graced a rosy bower, instead of hiding there. Yet there it was content to bloom, in modest tints arrayed, and there diffused its sweet perfume within the silent shade. Then let me to the valley go, this pretty flower to see, that I may also learn to grow in sweet humility. Jane Taylor. The Rainbow, a fragment. The Rainbow by William Wordsworth (1770–1850) accords with every child's feelings. It voices the spirit of all ages that would love to imagine it a bridge to heaven. My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began, so is it now I am a man, so be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety. William Wordsworth. End of section 8. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 9th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 9. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 2 poems, A Visit from St. Nicholas and The Star-Spangled Banner. Part 1. Continued. A Visit from St. Nicholas. A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore, 1779–1863, is the most popular Christmas poem ever written. It carries Santa Claus on from year to year, and my heart leaps up. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature
Now I
was
am a
stirring,
man.
not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled! His dimples, how merry! His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, Up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down on a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Clement Clarke Moore. The Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, say, can you see, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars, through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming? And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof, through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? On that shore dimly seen through the mists of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes, what is that which the breeze o'er the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, now conceals, now discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected, now shines on the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, oh, long may it wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. And where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country, should leave us no more? Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, thus be it ever, when free men shall stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, for our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Francis Scott Key. End of section 9. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 10th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 10. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 2 poems, Father William and The Nightingale and the Glowworm. Part 1 continued. Father William. Father William, a parody by Lewis Carroll, born 1833, is even more clever than the original. Harmless fun brightens the world. It takes a real genius to create wit that carries no sting. "You are old, Father William," the young man said, "and your hair has become very white. And yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think, at your age, it is right?" "In my youth," Father William replied to his son, "I feared it might injure the brain. But now that I'm perfectly sure I have none, why, I do it again and again." "You are old," said the youth, "as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you turned a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason of that?" "In my youth," said the sage, as he shook his grey locks, "I kept all my limbs very supple. By the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box, allow me to sell you a couple." "You are old," said the youth, "and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. Yet you finished the goose with the bones and the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?" "In my youth," said his father, "I took to the law, and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life." "You are old," said the youth. "One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever, yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?" "I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough," said his father. "Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to such stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs." Lewis Carroll. The Nightingale and the Glowworm. The Nightingale, by William Cowper (1731 1800), is a favorite with a teacher of good taste, and I include it at her request. A nightingale, that all day long had cheered the village with his song, nor yet at eve his note suspended, nor yet when eventide was ended, began to feel, as well he might, the keen demands of appetite. When, looking eagerly around, he spied far off upon the ground a something shining in the dark, and knew the glowworm by his spark. So, stooping down from hawthorn top, he thought to put him in his crop. The worm, aware of his intent, harangued him thus, right eloquent: "Did you admire my lamp," quoth he, "as much as I your minstrelsy? You would abhor to do me wrong, as much as I to spoil your song. For 'twas the selfsame power divine taught you to sing and me to shine, that you with music, I with light, might beautify and cheer the night." The songster heard his short oration, and, warbling out his approbation, released him, as my story tells, and found a supper somewhere else. William Cowper. End of section 10. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 10th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 11. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Jack Frost, The Owl, and Little Billy. Part 2. The Little Child. The Frost. Jack Frost, by Hannah Flagg Gould, 1789 1865, is perhaps 100 years old, but he is the same rollicking fellow today as of yore. The poem puts his merry pranks to the front, and prepares the way for science to give him a true analysis. The frost looked forth one still clear night, and whispered, "Now I shall be out of sight, so through the valley and over the height in silence I'll take my way. I will not go on with that blustering train, the wind and the snow, the hail and the rain, who make so much bustle and noise in vain, but I'll be as busy as they." Then he flew to the mountain and powdered its crest. He lit on the trees, and their boughs he dressed in diamond beads, and over the breast of the quivering lake he spread a coat of mail that it need not fear the downward point of many a spear that hung on its margin far and near, where a rock could rear its head. He went to the windows of those who slept, and over each pane like a fairy crept. Wherever he breathed, wherever he slept, by the light of the moon were seen most beautiful things. There were flowers and trees, there were bevies of birds and swarms of bees. There were cities with temples and towers, and these all pictured in silver sheen. But he did one thing that was hardly fair. He peeped in the cupboard, and finding there that all had forgotten for him to prepare, "Now, just to set them a-thinking, I'll bite this basket of fruit," said he. "This costly pitcher I'll burst in three, and the glass of water they've left for me shall chich to tell them I'm drinking." Hannah Flagg Gould. The Owl. When cats run home, and light is come, and dew is cold upon the ground, and the far-off stream is dumb, and the whirring sail goes round, and the whirring sail goes round, alone and warming his 5 wits, the white owl in the belfry sits. When merry milkmaids click the latch, and rarely smells the new-mown hay, and the cock hath sung beneath the thatch twice or thrice his roundelay, twice or thrice his roundelay, alone and warming his 5 wits, the white owl in the belfry sits. Alfred Tennyson. Little Billy. Little Billy, by William Makepeace Thackeray, 1811 1863, finds a place here because it carries a good lesson good-naturedly rendered. An accomplished teacher recommends it, and I recollect 2 young children in Chicago who sang it frequently for years without getting tired of it. There were 3 sailors of Bristol City who took a boat and went to sea, but first with beef and captain's biscuits and pickled pork they loaded she. There was Gorging Jack and Guzzling Jimmy, and the youngest he was little Billy. Now when they got so far as the equator, they'd nothing left but 1 split pea. Says Gorging Jack to Guzzling Jimmy, "I am extremely hungry." To Gorging Jack says Guzzling Jimmy, "We've nothing left, us must eat we." Says Gorging Jack to Guzzling Jimmy, "With one another we shouldn't agree. There's little Bill, he's young and tender, we're old and tough, so let's eat he." "Oh, Billy, we're going to kill and eat you, so undo the button of your chemise." When Bill received this information, he used his pocket-handkerchief. "First let me say my catechism, which my poor mammy taught to me." Make haste, says Guzzling Jimmy, while Jack pulled out his snickersnee. So Billy went up to the main topgallant mast, and down he fell on his bended knee. He scarce had come to the 12th commandment, when up he jumps, "There's land I see! Jerusalem, and Madagascar, and North and South Ameriky. There's the British flag a-riding at anchor, with Admiral Napier, K.C.B." So when they got aboard of the Admiral's, he hanged fat Jack and flogged Jimmy. But as for little Bill, he made him the captain of a 73. William Makepeace Thackeray. End of section 11. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 12, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 12. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Butterfly and the Bee, An Incident of the French Camp, and Robert of Lincoln. Part 2, continued. The Butterfly and the Bee. The Butterfly and the Bee, by William Lyle Bowles, 1762-1850, is recommended by some schoolgirls. It carries a lesson in favor of the worker. Methought I heard a butterfly say to a laboring bee, "Thou hast no colors of the sky on painted wings like me." "Poor child of vanity, those dyes and colors bright and rare," with mild reproof the bee replies, "are all beneath my care. Content I toil from morn to eve, and scorning idleness, to tribes of gaudy sloth I leave the vanity of dress." William Lyle Bowles. An Incident of the French Camp. An Incident of the French Camp, by Robert Browning, 1812-1889, is included in this volume out of regard to a boy of 8 years who did not care for many poems, but this one stirred his heart to its depths. You know, we French stormed Ratisbon, a mile or so away. On a little mound Napoleon stood on our storming day, with neck out thrust, you fancy how, legs wide, arms locked behind, as if to balance the prone brow oppressive with its mind. Just as perhaps he mused, "My plans that soar to earth may fall, yet let once my army leader Lannes waver at yonder wall." Out twixt the battery smokes there flew a rider bound on bound, full galloping, nor bridle drew until he reached the mound. Then off there flung in smiling joy, and held himself erect, by just his horse's mane, a boy, you hardly could suspect, so tight he kept his lips compressed, scarce any blood came through. You looked twice ere you saw his breast was all but shot in two. "Well," cried he, "Emperor, by God's grace, we've got you Ratisbon. The marshal's in the market-place, and you'll be there anon to see your flag-bird flap his vans where I to heart's desire perched him." The chief's eye flashed, his plans soared up again like fire. The chief's eye flashed, but presently softened itself, as sheathes a film the mother eagle's eye, when her bruised eaglet breathes. "You're wounded." "Nay!" The soldier's pride touched to the quick, he said, "I'm killed, sire!" And his chief beside, smiling, the boy fell dead. Robert Browning. Robert of Lincoln. Robert of Lincoln, by William Cullen Bryant (1794 1878), is one of the finest bird poems ever written. It finds a place here because I have seen it used effectively as a memory gem in the Cook County Normal School (Colonel Parker's school) year after year, and because my own pupils invariably like to commit it to memory. With the child of 6 to the student of 20 years, it stands a source of delight. Merrily swinging on briar and weed, near to the nest of his little dame, over the mountain side or mead, Robert of Lincoln is telling his name. Bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. Snug and safe in this nest of ours, hidden among the summer flowers. Chee, chee, chee. Robert of Lincoln is gaily dressed, wearing a bright black wedding coat. White are his shoulders and white his crest. Hear him call in his merry note, bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. Look, what a nice new coat is mine! Sure, there was never a bird so fine. Chee, chee, chee. Robert of Lincoln's Quaker wife, pretty and quiet, with plain brown wings, passing at home a patient life, broods in the grass while her husband sings. Bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. Brood, kind creature, you need not fear thieves and robbers while I am here. Chee, chee, chee. Modest and shy as a nun is she, one weak chirp is her only note. Braggart and prince of braggarts is he, pouring boasts from his little throat. Bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. Never was I afraid of man. Catch me, cowardly knaves, if you can. Chee, chee, chee. 6 white eggs on a bed of hay, flecked with purple, a pretty sight. There, as the mother sits all day, Robert is singing with all his might. Bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. Nice good wife that never goes out, keeping house while I frolic about. Chee, chee, chee. Soon as the little ones chip the shell, 6 wide mouths are open for food. Robert of Lincoln bestirs him well, gathering seeds for the hungry brood. Bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. This new life is likely to be hard for a gay young fellow like me. Chee, chee, chee. Robert of Lincoln at length is made sober with work and silent with care. Off is his holiday garment laid, half forgotten that merry air. Bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. Nobody knows but my mate and I where our nest and our nestlings lie. Chee, chee, chee. Summer wanes, the children are grown, fun and frolic no more he knows. Robert of Lincoln's a humdrum drone, off he flies and we sing as he goes. Bobolink, bobolink, spink, spank, spink. When you can pipe that merry old strain, Robert of Lincoln, come back again. Chee, chee, chee. William Cullen Bryant. End of section 12. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 12, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 13. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Old Grimes, Song of Life, and Fairy Song. Part 2 continued. Old Grimes. Old Grimes is an heirloom, an antique gem. We learn it as a matter of course for its sparkle and glow. Old Grimes is dead, that good old man, we ne'er shall see him more. He used to wear a long black coat, all buttoned down before. His heart was open as the day, his feelings all were true. His hair was some inclined to gray, he wore it in a queue. He lived at peace with all mankind, in friendship he was true. His coat had pocket holes behind, his pantaloons were blue. He modest merit sought to find, and pay it its desert. He had no malice in his mind, no ruffles on his shirt. His neighbours he did not abuse, was sociable and gay. He wore large buckles on his shoes, and changed them every day. His knowledge, hid from public gaze, he did not bring to view, nor make a noise town meeting days, as many people do. His worldly goods he never threw in trust to fortune's chances, but lived, as all his brothers do, in easy circumstances. Thus undisturbed by anxious cares, his peaceful moments ran, and everybody said he was a fine old gentleman. Albert Gorton Greene. Song of Life. A traveller on a dusty road strewed acorns on the lea, and one took root and sprouted up and grew into a tree. Love sought its shade at evening time to breathe its early vows, and age was pleased in heights of noon to bask beneath its boughs. The dormouse loved its dangling twigs, the sweet birds music bore. It stood a glory in its place, a blessing evermore. A little spring had lost its way amid the grass and fern. A passing stranger scooped a well where weary men might turn. He walled it in, and hung with care a ladle on the brink. He thought not of the deed he did, but judged that toil might drink. He passed again, and lo, the well by summer never dried, had cooled 10,000 parched tongues, and saved a life beside. A nameless man, amid the crowd that thronged the daily mart, let fall a word of hope and love, unstudied from the heart. A whisper on the tumult thrown, a transitory breath. It raised a brother from the dust, it saved a soul from death. O germ, O fount, O word of love, O thought at random cast! Ye were but little at the first, but mighty at the last. Charles Mackay. Fairy Song. Shed no tear, oh shed no tear, the flower will bloom another year. Weep no more, oh weep no more, young buds sleep in the root's white core. Dry your eyes, oh dry your eyes, for I was taught in Paradise to ease my breast of melodies. Shed no tear. Overhead, look overhead, 'mong the blossoms white and red. Look up, I flutter now on this flush pomegranate bough. See me, 'tis the silvery bell ever cures the good man's ill. Shed no tear, oh shed no tear, the flowers will bloom another year. Adieu, adieu, I fly, adieu, I vanish in the heavens blue. Adieu, adieu. John Keats. End of section 13. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 12th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 14. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: A Boy's Song, Buttercups and Daisies, The Rainbow, and Old Ironsides. Part 2 continued. A Boy's Song. A Boy's Song. A Boy's Song, by James Hogg, 1770 to 1835, is a sparkling poem, very attractive to children. Where the pools are bright and deep, where the grey trout lies asleep, up the river and o'er the lea, that's the way for Billy and me. Where the blackbird sings the latest, where the hawthorn blooms the sweetest, where the nestlings chirp and flee, that's the way for Billy and me. Where the mowers mow the cleanest, where the hay lies thick and greenest, there to trace the homeward bee, that's the way for Billy and me. Where the hazel bank is steepest, where the shadow falls the deepest, where the clustering nuts fall free, that's the way for Billy and me. Why the boys should drive away little sweet maidens from the play, or love to banter and fight so well, that's the thing I never could tell. But this I know, I love to play, through the meadow, among the hay, up the water and o'er the lea. That's the way for Billy and me. James Hogg. Buttercups and Daisies. Buttercups and daisies, oh, the pretty flowers, coming ere the springtime, to tell of sunny hours. While the trees are leafless, while the fields are bare, buttercups and daisies spring up here and there. Ere the snowdrop peepeth, ere the crocus bold, ere the early primrose opens its paly gold, somewhere on the sunny bank buttercups are bright, somewhere 'mong the frozen grass peeps the daisy white. Little hardy flowers, like to children poor, playing in their sturdy health by their mother's door, purple with the north wind, yet alert and bold, fearing not and caring not, though they be a cold. What to them is winter? What are stormy showers? Buttercups and daisies are these human flowers. He who gave them hardships and a life of care, gave them likewise hardy strength and patient hearts to bear. Mary Howitt. The Rainbow. Triumphal arch that fills the sky when storms prepare to part, I ask not proud philosophy to teach me what thou art. Still seem, as to my childhood's sight, a midway station given, for happy spirits to alight betwixt the earth and heaven. Thomas Campbell. Old Ironsides. Old Ironsides by Oliver Wendell Holmes, 1809 to 1894, is learned readily. Children are untouched by the commercial spirit which is the reproach of this age. Ingratitude is the vice of republics, and this poem puts to shame the love of money and the spirit of ingratitude that could let a national servant become a wreck. I tear her tattered ensign down, long has it waved on high, and many an eye has danced to see that banner in the sky. Beneath it rung the battle shout, and burst the cannon's roar. The meteor of the ocean air shall sweep the clouds no more. Her deck, once red with heroes' blood where knelt the vanquished foe, when winds were hurrying o'er the flood and waves were white below, no more shall feel the victor's tread, or know the conquered knee. The harpies of the shore shall pluck the eagle of the sea. Oh, better that her shattered hulk should sink beneath the wave, her thunders shook the mighty deep, and there should be her grave. Nail to the mast her holy flag, set every threadbare sail, and give her to the God of storms, the lightning and the gale. Oliver Wendell Holmes. End of section 14. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 12th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 15. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Little Orphant Annie and O Captain, My Captain. Part 2 continued. Little Orphant Annie. Little Orphant Annie certainly earns her board and keep when she has washed the dishes, swept up the crumbs, driven the chickens from the porch, and done all the other odds and ends of work on a farm. The poet, James Whitcomb Riley, born 1853, has shown how truly a little child may be overtaxed and yet preserve a brave spirit and keen imagination. Children invariably love to learn this poem. Little orphaned Annies come to our house to stay, and wash the cups and saucers up, and brush the crumbs away, and shoo the chickens off the porch, and dust the hearth, and sweep, and make the fire, and bake the bread, and earn her board and keep. And all us other children, when the supper things is done, we set around the kitchen fire, and has the mostest fun a-listenin' to the witch tales 'at Annie tells about, and the gobble-uns 'at gits you, ef you don't watch out. Onct they was a little boy who wouldn't say his prayers, And when he went to bed at night, away upstairs, his mammy heard him holler, and his daddy heard him bawl, and when they turnt the kivers down, he wasn't there at all. And they seeked him in the rafter room, and cubby hole, and press, and seeked him up the chimbley flue, and everywheres, I guess. But all they ever found was this his pants and roundabout, and the gobble-uns'll git you if you don't watch out. And one time a little girl 'ud allus laugh and grin, and make fun of everyone, and all her blood and kin. And onc't, when they was company, and ol' folks was there, she mocked 'em and shocked 'em, and said she didn't care. And thist as she kicked her heels, and turnt to run and hide, they was two great black things a-standin' by her side, and they snatched her through the ceilin', for she knowed what she's about. And the gobble-uns'll git you ef you don't watch out. And little orphant Annie says, when the blaze is blue, and the lamp-wick sputters, and the wind goes woo-woo, and you hear the crickets quit, and the moon is gray, and the lightnin' bugs in dew is all squenched away, you better mind your parents and your teachers fond and dear, and churish them 'at loves you, and dry the orphant's tear, and hep the poor and needy ones 'at clusters all about, or the gobble-uns'll git you ef you don't watch out. James Whitcomb Riley. O Captain, My Captain. O Captain, My Captain, by Walt Whitman, 1819 to 1892, is placed here out of compliment to a little boy aged 10, who wanted to recite it once a week for a year. This song and Edwin Markham's poem on Lincoln are two of the greatest tributes ever paid to that hero. O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack, the prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. O Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills. For you bouquets and ribboned wreaths, for you the shores a-crowding, for you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head. It is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer, his lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm, he has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip the victor ship comes in with object won. Exult, O shores, and ring, O bells! But I, with mournful tread, walk the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. Walt Whitman. End of section 15. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 12, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 16. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Ingratitude, The Ivy Green, The Noble Nature, and The Flying Squirrel. Part 2 continued. Ingratitude. Ingratitude by William Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, is an incisive thrust at a refined vice. It is a part of education to learn to be grateful. Blow, blow, thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, because thou art not seen, although thy breath be rude. Freeze, freeze, thou bitter sky, thou dost not bite so nigh as benefits forgot. Though thou the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp as friend remembered not. William Shakespeare. The Ivy Green. The Ivy Green, by Charles Dickens (1812 1870), is a hardy poem in honor of a hardy plant. There is a wonderful ivy growing at Rhuddlan in northern Wales. Its roots are so large and strong that they form a comfortable seat for many persons, and no one can remember when they were smaller. This ivy envelops a great castle in ruins. Every child in that locality loves the old ivy. It is typical of the ivy as seen all through Wales and England. Oh, a dainty plant is the ivy green, that creepeth o'er ruins old. Of right choice food are his meals, I ween, in his cell so lone and cold. The walls must be crumbled, the stones decayed, to pleasure his dainty whim, and the mouldering dust that years have made is a merry meal for him. Creeping where no life is seen, a rare old plant is the ivy green. Fast he stealeth on, though he wears no wings, and a staunch old heart has he. How closely he twineth, how tight he clings to his friend, the huge oak tree. And slyly he traileth along the ground, and his leaves he gently waves, and he joyously twines and hugs around the rich mould of dead men's graves. Creeping where no life is seen, a rare old plant is the ivy green. Whole ages have fled, and their works decayed, and nations have scattered been, but the stout old ivy shall never fade from its hale and hearty green. The brave old plant in its lonely days shall fatten upon the past, for the stateliest building man can raise is the ivy's food at last. Creeping where no life is seen, a rare old plant is the ivy green. Charles Dickens. The Noble Nature. The Noble Nature, by Ben Jonson (1574 1637), needs no plea. A small virtue, well polished, is better than none. It is not growing like a tree, in bulk doth make man better be, or standing long an oak 300 year, to fall a log at last, dry, bald, and sere. A lily of a day is fairer far in May, although it fall and die that night. It was the plant and flower of light. In small proportions we just beauties see, and in short measures life may perfect be. Ben Jonson. The Flying Squirrel. The flying squirrel is an honest account of a live creature that won his way into scores of hearts by his mad pranks and affectionate ways. It is enough that John Burroughs has commended the poem. Of all the woodland creatures, the quaintest little sprite is the dainty flying squirrel in vest of shining white, in coat of silver gray, and vest of shining white. His furry Quaker jacket is trimmed with stripe of black. A furry plume to match it is curling o'er his back. New curved with every motion his plume curls o'er his back. No little newborn baby has pinker feet than he. Each tiny toe is cushioned with velvet cushions 3. 3 wee pink velvet cushions, almost too small to see. Who said the foot of baby might tempt an angel's kiss? I know a score of schoolboys who put their lips to this wee foot of the squirrel, and left a loving kiss. The tiny thief has hidden my candy and my plum. Ah, there he comes unbidden to gently nip my thumb. Down in his home, my pocket, he gently nips my thumb. How strange the food he covets, the restless, restless wight. Fred's old stuffed armadillo he found a tempting bite. Fred's old stuffed armadillo, with ears a perfect fright. The Lady Ruth's great bureau each foot a dragon's paw. The midget ate the nails from his famous antique claw. Oh, what a cruel beastie to hurt a dragon's claw! 2 autographic copies upon my choicest shelf. To every dainty volume the rogue has helped himself. My books, oh dear! No matter, the rogue has helped himself. And yet, my little squirrel, your taste is not so bad. You've swallowed Caird completely, and Psychologic Lad. Rosmini you've digested, and Kant in rags you've clad. Gnaw on, my elfish rodent, lay all the sages low. My pretty lace and ribbons, they're yours for weal or woe. My pocket-book's in tatters, because you like it so. Mary E. Burt. End of section 16. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 16, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 17. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Warren's Address to the American Soldiers, The Song in Camp, and The Bugle Song. Part 2 continued. Warren's Address to the American Soldiers. There is never a boy who objects to learning Warren's Address by John Pierpont, 1785 to 1866. To stand by one's own rights is inherent in every true American. This poem is doubtless developed from Robert Burns's Bannockburn. Stand! The ground's your own, my braves. Will ye give it up to slaves? Will ye look for greener graves? Hope ye mercy still? What's the mercy despots feel? Hear it in that battle peal. Read it on yon bristling steel. Ask it, ye who will. Fear ye foes who kill for hire? Will ye to your homes retire? Look behind you, they're afire. And before you see who have done it, from the vale on they come. And will ye quail? Leaden rain and iron hail, let their welcome be. In the God of battles trust. Die we may, and die we must, but oh, where can dust to dust be consigned so well? As where heaven its dews shall shed on the martyred patriot's bed, and the rocks shall raise their head of his deeds to tell. John Pierpont. The Song in Camp. The Song in Camp is Bayard Taylor's best effort as far as young boys and girls are concerned. It is a most valuable poem. I once heard a clergyman in Chicago use it as a text for his sermon. Since then, Annie Laurie has become the song of the Labor Party. The Song in Camp voices a universal feeling. Give us a song, the soldiers cried, the outer trenches guarding, when the heated guns of the camps allied grew wearied of bombarding. The dark Redan, in silent scoff, lay grim and threatening under, and the tawny mound of the Malakoff no longer belched its thunder. There was a pause. A guardsman said, "We storm the forts tomorrow. Sing while we may. Another day will bring enough of sorrow." They lay along the battery's side below the smoking cannon, brave hearts from Severn and from Clyde, and from the banks of Shannon. They sang of love and not of fame, forgot was Britain's glory. Each heart recalled a different name, but all sang Annie Laurie. Voice after voice caught up the song, until its tender passion rose like an anthem, rich and strong, their battle-eve confession. Dear girl, her name he dared not speak, but as the song grew louder, something upon the soldier's cheek washed off the stains of powder. Beyond the darkening ocean burned the bloody sunset's embers, while the Crimean valleys learned how English love remembers. And once again a fire of hell rained on the Russian quarters, with scream of shot and burst of shell and bellowing of the mortars. And Irish Nora's eyes are dim for a singer dumb and gory, and English Mary mourns for him who sang of Annie Laurie. Sleep, soldiers, still in honored rest, your truth and valor wearing. The bravest are the tenderest, the loving are the daring. Bayard Taylor. The Bugle Song. The Bugle Song by Alfred Tennyson, 1809 to 1890, says Heydrich, has for its central theme the undying power of human love. The music is notable for sweetness and delicacy. The splendor falls on castle walls and snowy summits old in story. The long light shakes across the lakes, and the wild cataract leaps in glory. Blow, bugle, blow, set the wild echoes flying. Blow, bugle, answer, echoes dying, dying, dying. Oh, hark, oh, hear, how thin and clear, and thinner, clearer, farther going. Oh, sweet and far from cliff and scar, the horns of Elfland faintly blowing. Blow, let us hear the purple glens replying. Blow, bugle, answer, echoes, dying, dying, dying. Oh, love, they die in yon rich sky, they faint on hill or field or river. Our echoes roll from soul to soul, and grow forever and forever. Blow, bugle, blow, set the wild echoes flying, and answer, echoes, answer, dying, dying, dying. Alfred Tennyson. End of section 17. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 16, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 18, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Three Bells of Glasgow and Sheridan's Ride. Part 2 continued. The Three Bells of Glasgow by Whittier, 1807 to 1892, cannot be praised too highly for its ethical value. Children always love to learn it after hearing it read correctly, and by one who understands and appreciates it. Stand by is the motto. My pupils teach it to me once a year, and learn it themselves too. Beneath the low-hung night-cloud that raked her splintering mast, the good ship settled slowly, the cruel leak gained fast. Over the awful ocean her signal guns pealed out. Dear God, was that thy answer from the horror round about? A voice came down the wild wind. Ho, ship ahoy, its cry! Our stout Three Bells of Glasgow shall stand till daylight by. Hour after hour crept slowly, yet on the heaving swells tossed up and down the ship-lights, the lights of the Three Bells. And ship to ship made signals, man answered back to man, while oft, to cheer and hearten, the Three Bells nearer ran. And the captain from her taffrail set down his hopeful cry. "Take heart, hold on," he shouted, "the Three Bells shall stand by." All night across the waters the tossing lights shone clear. All night from reeling taffrail the Three Bells sent her cheer. And when the dreary watches of storm and darkness passed, just as the wreck lurched under, all souls were saved at last. Sail on, Three Bells, forever, in grateful memory sail. Ring on, Three Bells of rescue, above the wave and gale. Type of the love eternal, repeat the Master's cry, as tossing through our darkness, the lights of God draw nigh. John G. Whittier. Sheridan's Ride. There never was a boy who did not like Sheridan's Ride, by T. Buchanan Reed, 1822 to 1872. The swing and gallop in it take every boy off from his feet. The children never teach this poem to me, because they love to learn it at first sight. It is easily memorized. Up from the south at break of day, bringing to Winchester fresh dismay, the affrighted air with a shudder bore, like a herald in haste, to the chieftain's door. The terrible grumble and rumble and roar, telling the battle was on once more, and Sheridan 20 miles away. And wider still those billows of war thundered along the horizon's bar, and louder yet into Winchester rolled the roar of that Red Sea uncontrolled, making the blood of the listener cold as he thought of the stake in that fiery fray, and Sheridan 20 miles away. But there is a road from Winchester town, a good broad highway leading down, and there, through the flush of the morning light, a steed as black as the steeds of night was seen to pass as with eagle flight. As if he knew the terrible need, he stretched away with his utmost speed. Hills rose and fell, but his heart was gay, with Sheridan 15 miles away. Still sprung from those swift hoofs thundering south, the dust, like smoke from the cannon's mouth, or the trail of a comet sweeping faster and faster, foreboding to traitors the doom of disaster, the heart of the steed and the heart of the master were beating like prisoners assaulting their walls, impatient to be where the battlefield calls. Every nerve of the charger was strained to full play, with Sheridan only 10 miles away. Under his spurning feet the road like an arrowy Alpine river flowed, and the landscape sped away behind like an ocean flying before the wind, and the steed, like a bark fed with furnace fire, swept on with his wild eye full of ire. But lo, he is nearing his heart's desire, he is snuffing the smoke of the roaring fray, with Sheridan only 5 miles away. The first that the general saw were the groups of stragglers, and then the retreating troops. What was done, what to do, a glance told him both. Then striking his spurs with a terrible oath, he dashed down the line, mid a storm of huzzas, and the wave of retreat checked its course there, because the sight of the master compelled it to pause. With foam and with dust the black charger was gray. By the flash of his eye and the red nostrils' play, he seemed to the whole great army to say, "I have brought you Sheridan all the way from Winchester, down to save the day." Hurrah, hurrah for Sheridan! Hurrah, hurrah for horse and man! And when their statues are placed on high, under the dome of the Union sky, the American soldier's temple of fame, there with the glorious general's name be it said, in letters both bold and bright, "Here is the steed that saved the day, by carrying Sheridan into the fight from Winchester, 20 miles away." Thomas Buchanan Reed. End of section 18. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 16, 2006 in Oceanside, California.